Good evening and welcome to the 2014 Delaware Teacher of the Year Awards ceremony. This year's educators have risen to the top of a very highly qualified and distinguished group of teachers. District leaders have watched hours of instruction and reviewed a mountain of records to narrow this field to 19 outstanding educators. We invite you to come with us now to meet each one, if only for a minute or so, to get to know them a little better. Ladies and gentlemen, Cape Henlopen School District's Allison Peet. Allison's classroom is fast-paced with high expectations.
My most memorable moment as a teacher would have to be a recent moment when I was observed for District Teacher of the Year. We had a team of 7 members, district office staff, and fellow educators who came into my classroom, and they watched a math lesson for an hour. Of course, the lesson was perfect. My kids sat straight up, hands folded, straight up and down, scared to death the whole time. I couldn't get them to talk to their neighbor even if I wanted them to. The lesson went perfect. They did exactly as I told them to. And at the end of the lesson, of course, was the best part. When everyone left, those members left, you could just see my classroom just erupt. They started high-fiving each other, hugging each other, congratulating each other, congratulating myself. And at that moment is when I realized that those students cared just as much about me being successful as I care about them being successful. It made me very proud.
Mrs. Peet is committed to maximizing every student's potential. From Delmar School District, Emily Ritchie. Her inviting personality encourages students to learn while attempting to do their best in all their endeavors.
My most memorable moment in my teaching career is something that happened to me at the end of the school year last year. I had a student on the last day of school come up to me and give me a hug and tell me that she was going to become a teacher. And the reason that this stands out to me so much in my mind is because when I think back to the first day of school, she came into my classroom after failing 9th grade the year before, and she failed Spanish 1 the year before, and she made it painfully clear to me that she had no desire to pass my class, be in my class, or even graduate from high school. So it took a lot of work on my part to build up a relationship with her. I had to forgive a lot of her harsh comments, and together we really worked to talk about the potential that she had and how her future really could be very successful. And it just makes me really happy to think that I may have had any part in shaping this young woman's life. And I honestly believe that she really could become a great teacher one day.
Emily is passionate about a global society and believes that bilingual students are a necessity in our increasingly connected world. Lori Hudson, Indian River School District's Teacher of the Year. Enthusiastic and energetic, compassionate and charismatic, devoted and determined.
My mother held a daycare in my house until I was 16 years old. So many kids were under my roof. My mom had relationships with their parents, their teachers, even their doctors. In the 70s and 80s, kids thrived on learning everything and anything, inside, outside, school, and at daycares. I saw my mother talk to these kids and build relationships with these kids that they still last today. Friends of mine who are 45 years old still call my mom Miss Ann, calling and asking her for a dental appointment. College was not an option. I had to go. My parents made me attend school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So 3 schools later, 1 husband and a child later, I really knew that I wanted to become a teacher and build the relationships with kids like my parents had early on in my childhood.
A former student said, "What I remember the most is the enthusiasm that Mrs. Hudson had for teaching." She is a teacher you want your child to have every day. Calloway, Laurel School District.
The person who has influenced my teaching career the most would have to be my twin sister, Erin. We have been competitors since we have been in the womb, and we've definitely morphed into reflective educators together. She's the person that I can confide into when it comes to anything in my classroom. We're always discussing reflective things such as what's the best teaching strategies to use in our classroom, things from classroom management, and how to develop content. So she's definitely my go-to person that always pushes me to be the best that I can be. She also has helped develop my drive to be the most caring, innovative, genuine, and passionate educator that I can possibly be.
Her strength is her ability to assess effectively, reflect thoughtfully, and then act to meet the needs of her students. Natalie Cullen is Seaford School District's Teacher of the Year.
We're going to send it down, playing the scale.
Watching her teach a group of students is frankly just fun.
Don't speed.
Some of the most memorable teaching moments for me are the dress rehearsals before our concerts. I have K through 2 and 3 through 5, and so my concerts contain about 250 to 300 children. I teach them one class at a time, and 2 days before the concert I throw them all together and hope it all works. So that is when I get goosebumps all over and the kids give back to me what I have taught them all along the way. I stand there, I wave my arms, and they sing their hearts out and show me everything that they've learned in the last 2 months, and it's absolutely the best feeling in the world. And then we get to take that to the stage and give that to their parents and the community, and that's what I remember most about the best moment of teaching.
She relates to them, inspires them, directs them, performs with them, and gives them rich feedback. All the while, students are having fun as they are learning. From Sussex Technical School District, Deborah Long has an excellent rapport with her students.
What would your reactions be if I came in and said, "Hey, guess what, guys? I got chicken pox"?
I would say that the person who's affected my teaching career the most is a combination of people. It's definitely my family. My parents, who are absolutely amazing, worked hard to make sure that my brother and sister and I could all go to the college of our choice, and they've always supported me in my education, growing up, and even in my career choices as I've gotten older. My brother and sister and I, we all 3 graduated from college. We entered the teaching profession, and I know that made my parents very proud. My sister is definitely somebody that I've looked up to in my teaching career. I saw her as somebody who was always willing to be there for her coworkers and for her students.
Students are naturally interested and actively engaged in her classes. Mr. Bryant's dedication to his students is outstanding. Daniel Bryant, Woodbridge School District.
The numerator, what's it, guys? Why did I become a teacher? Who inspired me? It actually goes back to my son, Chris, who has high-functioning autism. Chris, in first grade, joined the Delaware Autism Program at Shields Elementary in Lewis, Delaware. And at that time, he had very little skills. That was 20 years ago. Today, Chris managed to finish high school, being fully included into various classrooms. He just finished his first year of college, he drives, and he's engaged to be married. And it was not any teacher that I had growing up, although I had some great teachers, but it was the teachers that worked with Chris over the years and helped him regain all the skills that he had lost to autism. Does Chris still have autism? Yes, but through the patience and caring and professionalism of this group of individuals, for the most part, they gave us our son back. So how do you repay somebody for that? You don't. You pay it forward. So I left my former career, I went back to college, and became a teacher, graduating with a degree in secondary special education. Those people inspired me beyond belief, and that's why I'm a teacher today.
He likes to make songs about math problems, but it made me remember, and I would laugh when singing them in my head at home doing my homework. Andrea Lamott from Caesar Rodney School District has made her students believe in themselves, challenged them to learn in her class, and has shown them success.
When I was in middle school, I really struggled with math. It was a weakness of mine, and I was not very good at it at all. And in 8th grade, I had a math teacher who believed in me, and he spent just a little bit of time working with me. And by the middle of that year, I was a very successful math student. I went from a very struggling, getting almost D's in math, to getting A's with barely any work. It just came to me like that. And as I went through even high school and college, I was a very successful math student. I was the one helping other people to understand math concepts. And that really, I wanted to be that same teacher. I wanted to be the teacher that could influence other students by believing in them and knowing that they can do anything that they want, and just having that teacher behind them that believes in them and pushes them and encourages them so that they can be as successful as they would like to be.
She plays fun games that helps us learn, and she gives me jobs to do, says a former student. Capital School District's Teacher of the Year, Mary Petrucci-Eanes. She is a motivated, energy-filled person with sensitivity for the developmental needs of the young child.
I was working with a group of students in reading groups. We were doing a literature circle, and we were reading a Gary Paulson book, a part of the Francis Tuckett series. And in the novel, Gary Paulson describes a character as, snaggled tooth grin. His beard was dirty and unkempt and was covered in tobacco juice. And one of my students raised his hand, and we were talking about why would Gary Paulson describe this character. And he said, well, I know immediately that he's a bad guy. They're just describing how you don't trust him, you don't know where he's been. He said, but I really want to know, what is this guy going to do about the tooth fairy? He has no teeth to give.
She respects those around her and has certainly earned the respect of her peers and colleagues.
Yeah, I heard a lot of friends say.
From Lake Forest School District, Joshua McDuff.
Yeah, one of my earliest memories, in fact, my earliest memory is being at my grandfather's funeral and seeing this flag-draped coffin, which I didn't understand at the age of 4. And I began to talk to my relatives and found out a good number of them had served in World War II. And my grandfather had served in World War II. And I began to, at a very young age, research history of the Second World War, and that just kind of sparked my interest in history. Ever since then, I've just been involved in history, involved in civics and geography. I eat it up. In fact, my own son at the age of 7, one of his favorite things to do is to run around battlefields. We just went to Fort Delaware, and he really enjoys history as well. I try to bring that into the classroom. I try to keep that alive. It's very important that we keep history alive because we don't want to lose it. We want the kids to understand that it is important to understand what people have done before us, whether it be, in war or civil rights movement or in just general population, what these people have done for us now. And I worry, especially with a lot of modern day movies, that's what a lot of kids believe is history and love, that's fiction. So I try to bring history alive into the classroom as much as possible.
Well known for his demonstrative teaching style, he engages the students with a boisterous voice and direct eye contact. Milford School District's Judith Bruns is an outstanding example of what an extraordinary educator should be.
Yes, there is animals out there with more than one stomach. Anybody know what? No. Cows. Cows. Actually, most of my teachable moments don't happen in the classroom. They happen outside of the classroom. So when I think about teachable moments that make an impact or that I remember, probably the first one that comes to mind is, it happened about this time last year. It was Labor Day weekend. I get a call from one of my students who had graduated the year before, and he was attending a college in Pennsylvania, and he called to say that thanks to me, his first 2 weeks in class were amazing because he knew everything the professor was talking about. And I thought, yes. I teach a career and tech education class, and so a lot of times people think what I teach is not always applicable to college-bound students. And this was a student who wanted to major in wildlife, took my animal science classes, but everything his professor talked about was all animal biology and the science behind animal life. And he was like, "It's great, Mrs. Bruns, I knew everything," and the other students were confused and lost. And I just thought, yes, I did it. That's what I do. That's why I do what I do.
She goes beyond her job description, always challenging herself to see if she can do more for her students. Jennifer Bradshaw from Polytech School District embodies the role of a superior educator.
I would definitely have to say the foundation of my teaching techniques is my experience in athletics. There's so many parallels that can be drawn between being an effective coach and an effective teacher. We've all driven by our local Little League field and seen the coach at home plate hitting one ground ball at a time to each kid on the field. Every child might be lucky to touch the ball 20 times during that practice. That's hardly effective. I started coaching when I was about 13, and over the years I've learned how to design an effective practice that keeps every child active in every drill. There's no downtime. I follow the same principle in my classroom. Every child has a role, a responsibility, a contribution they can make. The best teachers and coaches I've ever had the pleasure of learning from taught by the familiar Chinese proverb. Tell me, I'll forget. Show me, I may remember. Involve me, and I'll understand. Every day in my classroom, I strive to involve every kid all day long.
She takes so much pleasure in watching her students grow while maintaining a friendly, light relationship that makes every student feel necessary to the class and the activity at hand. Mrs. Yui has the ability to make everyone feel that they are an important contributing part of the whole school picture. Lisa Yui, Smyrna School District.
Dad and I sat in the rear or stern of the...
My most memorable teaching moment was actually a couple years ago when we were getting ready for the state test. Now, generally, throughout the year, I always kind of push that we're a team, we work together, that we're a family, and you never know if that's really hitting home. But on this particular day when we were preparing, all of my students together, they must have practiced at recess, shouted out Ohana. I had never seen the movie Lilo and Stitch, so I asked them what it meant, and they said Ohana means family, and in a family, nobody is left behind or forgotten. Well, that of course hit my heart, and I was very excited they said that because I knew that they had been listening to me and they did feel like a team. They told me they wanted it to be our theme for the year because they did feel like they were part of a family. So it made me realize that you do need to teach that also. You need to make your students comfortable and feel like they're part of a family.
Okay, before we go on,
If you're lucky, sometime during your 12-year school career, you might get a teacher that not only teaches the standard material, but inspires you as well. Lee Wainwright, Appoquinimink School District. There are so many things that set her apart from the pack that the best thing I can say is Lee rocks.
But this school year, I was teaching upper level French class, and one of my students, I'll throw out her name there, Jamia, was doing a Prezi presentation. Well, Prezi is kind of like a PowerPoint on steroids. The kids, it's multimedia, they include video. It's just a really cool thing, and they like playing with it. And it's something that kids like to do. So in upper level classes, the kids have to come up with a global concern and explain what's happening and prepare questions, and then the students interact. Well, she came up with this global concern about vegetable oil. And palm trees are a key component of vegetable oil, palm tree oil. And the kids got so engaged with her questions, but started spouting back questions at her, and were on the edge of their seats, and they're getting angry about this whole issue, and why are we having to deal with this kind of thing? Why don't we know better? And next thing I know, they're all having this conversation, coming up with these proposals, and I'm sitting back, and then it dawns on me that this is all in French. It's like the biggest moment of a teacher's life to see that happening. So they're using French as a vehicle to discuss the world's problems. This same student, on my end of course, not evaluation, but it's a survey, I asked her, one of the questions was, what did you gain from this class? And she said, in this class, I learned about my home. Not Middletown, not Delaware, not the United States, but Earth. I learned about Earth. And that just made my heart glow.
Using the French language as a vehicle for probing global issues, Lee has challenged her students to use their new language skills to communicate ideas and solve problems. Brandywine School District's Linda Lobach is willing to help with whatever the task is at hand, all with the goal of supporting teachers, students, and families.
One of my most memorable moments in teaching actually happened outside my classroom. Several years ago, I had a student in 5th grade who was a struggling reader, but she was very dedicated, and I worked with that girl with her academics and also tried to help her with her self-confidence. Several years later, I ran into this same young lady, and I was surprised that she remembered me. And she said to me, "Oh, I'll never forget you." She said, "You believed in me when I was struggling in school, and you told me if I worked really hard that I could do anything I wanted to do." And she said, "I'm really glad I ran into you." She said, "I need to tell you that I graduated with honors and that I'm now enrolled in law school." And then she gave me a really big hug and she said, "Thank you." And I said, "Wow, it just doesn't get any better than that."
She never expressed doubts in students' ability to achieve the highest potential. She could crack the toughest cookie.
Off the cosine graph are x-intercepts.
A colleague says, whenever I am asked about the qualities of a great teacher, I picture Tom Collis.
Basically, I became a teacher because as a high school student, I was taught by the Jesuits, and I enjoyed their spirit. And I entered the Jesuits, and one of the services they provide is teaching, and I went into teaching. In 1970, they opened the door in D.C. I walked in, and in 72, I walked back out, and I was a teacher, and I've stayed doing it since. They didn't do teacher training, but I mean, the big thing was wherever you were, you had to do service. I did prisons, I did TB centers, halfway houses for juveniles, orphanages. So it was always a basic part of a day. When I was doing undergraduate, I was also working at an orphanage. When I went to get my degree in theology in Toronto, I did all my scheduling so that the morning I could teach from 8 to 12, in the afternoon I did my courses.
It is truly an art, not a method, one that is grounded in his love of the subject and his dedication to his students. Miss Amsterdam is able to push each of her students to reach their highest potential. Tara Amsterdam, Colonial School District.
Okay, my most memorable moment in my career is when I watched a former student of mine graduate 8th grade. When this student was in my class in 4th grade, his mother disappeared. Because his father was in jail, he was sent to live with his grandmother. So I reached out to his grandmother and I said that I'd like to mentor him because I knew he was going to need some extra support. And little did I know how that decision would impact both of our lives. I still remain in touch with him, and when I went to his graduation in 8th grade, he read a poem about his determination and dealing with life's challenges. I stood there and I got tears in my eyes as I watched him give this speech or poem, and I also watched him accept a full scholarship to Salesianum. I can't wait for that day 2 years from now to watch him graduate and go on to college.
Her use of technology in the classroom and homes of her students is very cutting edge.
Ready? Pneumonia. I got a fever. CHF right here. All right? Pneumonia. What kind of breath sound?
From Newcastle County Vocational Technical School District, Jennifer Immediato's positive attitude translates into a classroom atmosphere of learning and respect.
I would say that I know that I made the right decision to be a teacher because a student in my class raised her hand and said, "Can I tell you about my cousin? When she was 4, her mom was murdered and her mom's boyfriend killed himself, but she was shot." I stopped my student and said, "Can I finish that story?" because I had that run. I was the one who cared for that child when she was 4, and I held her in my arms when she was scared. And she had the matted blood hair, and she was scared, didn't move because she was laying on top of her mom who had died. And I never knew if anything I did made a difference there. But this student sitting in front of my class, it was her cousin. And what I found out that day was the time that I took to visit that child in the hospital and bring her coloring books and crowns and to make sure that she was okay, it made her want to go into public service, just like I am. And she said it was because there was a woman that took the time to notice her in her worst day. She was 4 years old and she was shot in the face, and I took care of her, and I never knew what happened to her. But that day in my classroom, my student said, "Miss I, you did make a difference." And that difference wasn't about saving that child's mother, but that difference was to take the time and notice that child. And I know that's why I ended up in teaching.
She taught me everything about being an EMT, and even more, she taught me how to be confident in myself.
I do. I've had a heart attack. I have asthma. And I've been sick lately.
Edward Killheffer, Red Clay Consolidated School District. Inside the classroom, Ed sets the expectation of excellence for all of his students.
A few years ago, there was a group of students who wanted to, they came to me to ask me if they could do DDR, which is short for Dance Dance Revolution, in my classroom. I had a big TV set up, and they came in and they did that every day for lunch. And it's an arcade game where the kids, it plays music, and they have to dance, and they have to make steps, and they have to do them accurately to score high.
Well, they came and they started doing that, and one day they came and they said, "Hey, Mr. Killheffer, you got to get up and do this thing." And I was like, "Oh my God, are you serious?" And so I eventually got up and did it. And then somebody had the bright idea and said, "Hey, we got our big pep rally coming up. You've got to do it in front of the whole school." And I thought, wow, it's one thing to do it in my classroom, it's another thing to do it there. So, I agreed, and so I went home, I got DDR, I'm practicing every night, I'm dancing in the basement, and I chose one song. They said, you can pick the song, so I got that one, I nailed it, and that was the one I practiced every night. Well, it came around to the week of the pep rally, and we're going through the pep rally, and I'm watching the clock, and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to run out of time. I'm not going to have to do it. So finally, they stopped everything. They said, "Oh, Mr. Killheffer's going to do DDR against one student in front of the whole high school." And I thought, well, okay. And so they put it on, and I'm up there, and I'm dancing, and I'm hitting every step. But I could only keep it together for so long, and the wheels started coming off. And I made it through, and I threw my hands up in the air at the end when I was so relieved to be done. And it was perfect because the kids later on said, "Oh, Mr. Killheffer, you're winning. You could have won." But when I started messing up, the other kid overcame and the student won. So it was really perfect. But I realized afterwards that I'm asking my kids to take risks all the time, and so I was really happy that I could show them that I could I could get outside my comfort zone and do something that was totally uncomfortable for me, and it could turn out okay. And so to me, it was a great learning experience for myself and for my students as well.
That's going to be...
He pushes his students to achieve their very best and has the results to validate this effort. Ladies and gentlemen, please join with the Delaware Department of Education in congratulating your 19 District Teachers of the Year.